Welcome to Mean Age Daydream with me, Brian McWilliams, where we're going to be making some jokes, laughing out at broken world, but also laying out the philosophy for the future, how we can fix this mess we're in and have a great time doing it all with a Mean Age Daydream. What's up, buttercups? Happy holidays, happy time of the year to you, all that good stuff. I am, of course, Brian McWilliams, your bald and beautiful host, and I want to welcome you to Mean Age Daydream. I already know that this is going to be an episode that is going to get some conversations going. It's a tough topic to talk about mass shootings in general, but I've voiced opinions in the past talking about what my opinion on why these things happen is, right? Because we just had another one, this time a female shooter, and it happened in Wisconsin. Before I get into that specific instance, I do want to say that my position in the past has been that we don't have a gun problem, and I still don't think we don't have a gun problem, because so many of the things that we're seeing now with these shooters, it's basically a recent problem. I mean, we had far less gun control and far more guns per household, because right now we might have more guns, but we do not have more guns per household. That's actually gone down dramatically. Of course, a lot of that has to do with the fact that we haven't had major world wars and major U.S. wars like World War I, World War II, Vietnam, where you had a lot of arms that were brought home by soldiers, either as souvenirs or just kept after the battle when they came home. So you had a lot of houses that owned them and also that believed strongly that you need to have these weapons in the house. Now, I still think that that is important. I think that knowledge about guns is important. I think that knowing how to shoot properly is very important. But beyond that, not knowing how to shoot properly all the time is not the reason you have mass shooters. It's not the reason suicides are way up. That has to do with many factors, one of which, of course, is the wars that have been fought by the United States causing people to commit suicide. Others are what I think is a more likely culprit, which is that so many of these mass shooters, typically male, and that's why this latest one is kind of an outlier. Well, they tend to be people that are loners, that are essentially forced out of society because of being different. They find people online that they identify with, or they find causes that paint their life as significantly worse than others, right? You have online bullying, you have the isolation, which I think back in the days used to be more of an isolation where there was kinship between kids in a school, right? You had the geeks and they were isolated in their own way, but they found other things to do and they had their own support system in place between the friend group there. And while you always are going to have bullying, you're always going to have pieces of garbage in the world that are not going to be kind to each other. You did not have this type of reaction and acting out. And I think that that is because there is a distinct isolation that exists now that combines with being ostracized at school, being ostracized online, and having no escape, right? Because if you're on social media, you are never able to escape what is a constant barrage of negativity, of people attacking you, of malice, and then you find solace in other people who are angry, who are isolated. And that, I believe, is really what's leading to a lot of this, combined with parents that simply are not tuned in. The amount of parents that you see that are on their phones, the amount of parents whose kids have phones, by the way, is a major problem and cause of all this, in my opinion. Again, being too easily accessible to social media and comparing themselves to others in that way. This is what's combined to lead us to the path we're on, in a way. Because as of late, we've seen that a lot of these shooters are either, number one, trans, and at the last, I believe, 3 shooters in a row were trans. And the latest one is not trans per what I have read so far. And I want to put a big red disclaimer on this. I'm going on what I know right now. And 24 hours after it happened, I'm also going to base this on reports that had come out from Andy No, NGO, probably a lot of you familiar with Andy No, and his claims to have been shared documentation about who this person was that was the shooter. We still don't know her name. We just know she's a 15-year-old girl. They've not released her name formally yet. And what her beliefs were, like what her manifesto was. This all could not be accurate. But I'm going to go on what is being presented as accurate right now And also in the context of, as I mentioned, former shooters being uniquely left-wing psychotic. As the episode is titled, the left is calling for gun control. And they're calling for gun control predictably. I believe this is a nice smokescreen for the left because they're getting upset about this gun violence, right? And, oh, well, we've called for a moratorium on sales of guns, and we've called for reining in assault weapons. Well, a lot of time, assault weapons is not really what they are talking about. But they want to have all these checks and all these measures put in place, which, by the way, typically would do nothing to stop any of these, which that's been proven time and time again for the most part. But in the meantime, many of us are still not willing to sacrifice individual liberties, the Second Amendment, and the right to bear arms in the effort to protect against these outlying events. But the core of what frustrates me so much about the left's approach is that they take zero responsibility for a problem which I certainly believe that they've caused. And that is poisoning the minds of children. Not only just with, the propaganda that is nonstop like a fire hose from every entertainment outlet, from every news outlet, and from the Democrat Party itself, but also in the vein of poisoning them physically with chemicals. Because let's not forget that the vast majority of doctors, the vast majority of psychiatrists, the vast majority of psychologists, the vast majority of teachers, and by vast, I'm talking 95% plus vast majority of all the people that work in these fields, in social services, right? In DEI departments, in entertainment and media. All of these people are on the left, and they are vehemently on the left. And yet these are the people that are responsible for, as we know now, one of the greatest scandals that's going to go down, I think, in human history, which is the rampant, quote unquote, transing of youth, the removal of any guardrails when it comes to children being prescribed hormones, to having top and bottom surgeries, to being transitioned in school without people knowing about it, without parental permission or knowledge that this is happening. They pushed this down from a top-down manner. The Biden administration led the way. The American Medical Association capitulated. The Psychiatrist Union, I don't know what they're technically called, had forced in the, yes, this is an affirmative model and we're not going to question it. Now, at the same time, this destroyed thousands upon thousands of children. It's hard to find exact numbers on this, but we've seen the reports that have come out from other nations like the United Kingdom with the Tavistock Clinic report. We've seen these reports come out from the basis of documentation used in the United States that supposedly were the guidelines, right? The science, trust the science on what was supposed to happen with treating kids that have these disorders. But remember, they're not disorders anymore. They're not to be treated. It's only to be affirmed. And how they were completely misguided, how they lied to the American public about the efficacy of the drugs themselves, about whether or not they changed kids' hormones, whether or not you could reverse puberty once it was halted, which is you cannot, it's not true, whether or not suicide rates among trans children were actually so far higher, because the main lie was that we were told if you don't allow your kid to trans, right, would you rather have them end up dead? AKA the line, would you rather have a living daughter or a dead son? That was all nonsense, since been disproven. Yet they continue to push this nonsense out there. They continue to push lies like the gender wage gap out into the world. They continue to push lies like women in the United States are treated as some sort of inferior species to men, which is completely nonsensical, especially now when you have women actually out earning men and getting far more promotions, far more not only cultural achievements, but financial achievements than men coming up there by design. And yet you have the constant beating of the drum that if you're trans, that you are a special snowflake that has to be catered to and has to be affirmed, and there's nothing wrong with you. And if anybody does think there's something wrong with you, not that they are a caring individual that wants to stop and consider what the evidence might be in efforts to protect you and others, but that you are a bigot, that you are a hate-filled monster, and that communities that dare to say, we don't think this is okay to do, like, let's say, Christians and Christian churches, well, these people are hate-filled monsters that want you to die, right? And we've seen this type of rhetoric online and in academia and in the media. that the people that don't say that you are a girl or you're a boy or you should trans, well, they hate you. They want you to die because they want you to commit suicide, right? Because we've been told that lie so many times. So what ends up happening? Trans kids go and shoot up very specific targets, and those targets tend to be, at least in recent times, Christian children's schools. The latest example of this is not trans as far as we know yet, but is a 15-year-old girl. And this 15-year-old girl, per a manifesto, again, that I'm not seeing been confirmed yet, although Andy No has a fairly good track history in reporting accurately, right? To the point where he's won numerous court cases. But the report that's being issued by Andy No, if it's to be believed, was that this person believed that the mass shooting was taken out by a girl using an online name of Sam, who had a obsession with school shooters and death. So thank you to our media for overcovering this issue. Thank you for the Democrats for never letting any tragedy go by without politicizing it. And she also had a very strong distaste for the patriarchy. Now, why this has somehow come out in a murdering rampage at a Christian school, I don't know. I mean, presumably it is her school, but she has been so filled with hatred for men and the patriarchy that apparently that was, if this is to be believed, one of the main reasons for her going on this shooting spree. So this is per the reported manifesto. This is what this woman has written. Women are the only hope for this wretched world, but even women have been brainwashed by moids for too long. They've internalized the patriarchy and turned on each other, always begging for male approval and validation. It's disgusting. I realize the truth. Men are irredeemable. Rad Femme Hitler was fucking vindicated now. So this person is not a very good writer. There's a lot of redundant adjectives and things in here. They can't be reformed or redeemed. They're a fucking scourge upon the earth. The only solution is total extermination and every foid who worships these parasites. Every single male must be wiped out, from babies to the elderly. Only then can women be free to create a new world. I'll be a pioneer. I'll be the first to take the first step. I don't care if they're fathers, brothers, sons, teachers, police, and especially N-words. So not only is this person super against the patriarchy, but apparently is also racist, or politicians. I've been craving to kill them all. This is my mission. Only when their parasitic sludge has been expunged from this earth, the world will be clean and women can start over. It's the only way. In approximately 10 minutes, I should be dead. It's strange, but it feels good. So Rad Femme Hitler, by the way, is apparently the most violent wing of radical feminism. So radical feminism, where do we associate radical feminism with? Well, of course, we associate that with people on the left and the far left. This woman was brainwashed. This young girl was brainwashed into believing this. Clearly, the mainstream media has a large role in that, in pushing the fact that women are downtrodden in the United States per their claims. Obviously, mainstream media coverage of Columbine played into the role of this because they became such a cultural flashpoint for kids like this. And look, I still think my original point holds true here as well. I mean, I'm going to guess that this gal was not a scion of popularity within her school. Anybody that's obsessed with Columbine and whatever death metal music, I'm sure probably is not. But the fact that this patriarchal excuse that women need to rule the world, that men are garbage and oppressors, and that only women should be allowed to lead, certainly sounds like things that we have heard echoed from the halls of academia as they pushed a feminine ideology. I'm the dad of 2 young girls, right? I want nothing but them to be successful, to be loved, to have every opportunity in the world. But I can tell you what I'm not going to do. And I'm not going to tell them that they're at a huge disadvantage, except physically, by the way, to men in this world. I'm going to tell them that they're smart. I'm going to tell them that they're just as capable of out-earning, competing with men. In fact, I'm not going to even tell them to their faces. I'm going to tell them by loving them and encouraging them and telling them that they cannot use the excuse of being a woman as a method of failure or a reason for failure. It's similar to what I hate about left-wing writing in Hollywood. And by the way, we'll get around to a little bit of writing and gaming too, because that's a topic that's really come up a lot lately. But they ruin characters in Hollywood when they try to write for strong women, the girl boss women, right? Oh, and we'll also talk about this with Justice Ketanji Jackson Brown and her pathetically cringe performance in a Tony nominated garbage play that is the perfect encapsulation of every stupid left-wing cliche you've ever heard of. But I get back to my main point here. The girl boss mantra and this fake Hollywood mantra that women must always say that they're strong and be told that they're strong, and then it's a women's world, and we're gonna ruins, number one, the basic characters of women, right? Strong women don't need to say out loud, I am a strong woman and I'm a girl boss, and that's why this world is going to bend. No, they just do what needs to be get done. They do it well, and people go, God damn, that's amazing. I can't remember exactly who said it. It may have been Tom Woods at one point in time, but the fact that if women are just as capable as men and that they get paid less than men as a rule were a real thing, every company that we're being told by the left is also greedy and manipulative and wants to fuck their workers over would be hiring nothing but women, wouldn't they? So I guess that, case in point, disproves this entire nonsense. But getting back to this shooter, I mean, it's a problem that the left will not acknowledge. They'll never acknowledge their role in creating this new generation of mass shooters. And you know, the entire concept, as I mentioned earlier, of the online isolation and bullying, that's something that I can't blame the left distinctly for, but I will say, I think the left makes it worse. I think they make it far stronger because the cancel culture on the left is so much more antagonistic. I think that there's so many social causes that the left has created that make bullying, make ostracization so much more powerful and pertinent. The fact that a lot of these people are ostracized or feel ostracized and isolated is because of the left pushing ideologies that they are now, globbing onto as an identity, which probably would not have existed before. And then you combine it with just saying this complete and total refusal to change any of this, to acknowledge, as I mentioned earlier, the trans issue as a complete boondoggle, I mean, a tragedy. The refusal to admit that women are doing pretty goddamn well. The refusal to admit that, in fact, the majority of us are doing pretty damn well and we're getting along just fine until they started to divide us, intentionally with all of these narratives. And that so many of these times it's simply a cash grab. They accuse people that are like libertarians, like myself, of being, free market ideologists that don't care about the common man. And then you go and see the green climate scams that are going on right now and how many people are getting billions and billions, or the COVID scams going on where people made billionaires out of idiots giving COVID tests that didn't work, or the academics that get paid millions of dollars to write nonsense papers or run DEI seminars or ESG seminars or push patriarchal seminars and teach things like Black women's native gender studies in America and how it intersects with trans Eskimos. The grift is so strong here that these people will never capitulate to the truth. They will never apologize. And in the meantime, we're going to continue to see things like this. How do we solve it? I think we're slowly doing it. I think that what's going on right now with the new Trump administration and its appointees can make an impact. And I think that that's powerful. I think that parents are starting to wake up to the poisons of social media and of being solo in this world and being isolated without a parent there to understand and recognize that you're going through some things and take an active role in your life and let you know that you're loved and let you know that maybe they should get you out of the school, or maybe they should get you in a different friend group, or maybe they should get you involved in something that can give you alternatives so that you don't feel isolated. Because one of the other things that I think about this is when these people do these types of things, typically there's nobody they're friends with that's going to judge them. They're not worried about judgment from anybody else because they're so alone. And that includes their parents. All right, let me get off my fucking soapbox. Let's talk about something else. Okay, so moving forward, I do want to talk about Justice Ketanji Jackson Brown. Now, she is in a new, well, I say actually it's not new, it's Tony Award nominated. And for those of you who don't know, the Tonys are like the Oscars. This is funny. Trampling at the zoo with a funny comment that he only hires trannies, a man's body for a woman's pay. It's not bad. So Justice Ketanji Jackson Brown. I really despise her. I think she's a flat out fucking moron. Fairly obvious if you've read any of her conclusions, any of her opinions, patently idiotic. She just had a recent one, and I don't have it in front of me, but making completely moronic statements in regards to the issue of trans, because of course she would. Why wouldn't she not know anything about what she's talking about? And I always was laughing because people were saying, as we were calling her a moron, these people on the left were defending her, saying, well, she went to Harvard and she has all these degrees. Okay, that means nothing. I mean, for fuck's sake, Lori Lightfoot is a teacher right now at Harvard. She is one of the dumbest people to ever exist, ran Chicago into the ground before its new socialist mayor, who somehow the morons of Chicago then elected somebody even more far left than her to further drive them into the ground. Harvard is not an academic institution of note any longer. It is a club where people go either when they're failing and they're DEI notable, so they bring them on board, or it's a club where you can get in friends and family to try to put a path in front of them for easy assessment for future careers, for social clubs. I mean, the academic club to government club, back to NGO club, back to academic club is pretty strong. And these are institutions that exist solely for the people in the elite circles to feather their nests, right? To keep everything essentially a closed circle. And for those that don't, like a Ketanji Jackson Brown, you see the result. Yeah, they went to Harvard. They're not exactly somebody I would say is impressive. The least impressive thing I've ever seen her done, though, it just happened. And there's video out there. I'm not going to share this video because again, every time I share a video on here, it gets dinged and YouTube's on our ass because we're shadow banned. So anything we share, they look to flag if it goes and shares any piece of media for a fucking hot second that somehow references anything that's ever been on television in a news segment. It doesn't matter. They blackball us and demonetize us, and they make us take the video down. But she's in a new play called And Juliet. Now, if you're wondering, oh, okay, And Juliet, oh, this must be a Shakespearean play. Well, you'd be right. Because just like the left loves to do, it loves to take things that are cliche and unoriginal ideas, such as taking a classic Shakespearean production like Romeo and Juliet, which, of course, is world-renowned. Of course, not anymore, because the left is trying to cancel people like William Shakespeare and cancel all white authors. Oh, and by the way, fun fact, did you know there's currently a dearth of white male novelists? Yeah, the publishing industry is actually in a crisis now because there's a lot of shitty authors that are not white and male that they keep getting manuscripts from. Nobody wants to read them. No good. I'm not saying all of them. I'm not trying to be racist here, but I'm saying that's what is coming in. It's white females, and of course, people of all diverse backgrounds. Why? Because publishers stopped publishing white male novelists and everybody said, fuck it, I give up. Similar to what essentially over the last couple of years, I've not written any new screenplays because I've been so frustrated trying to get anybody to read or create anything from a white male that's straight, such as myself. So as talented as a writer I am, I have basically given up because the pathway was so impossible for me. Every opportunity, every program was not looking for people like me. And they said it very straightforward. They said they were looking for people that were of diverse backgrounds and diverse voices. That means not a straight white male. But you know what? Things are turning because the industry has killed itself and cratered so hard that now they have to go backwards. Thus, the publishing industry is now looking for white male novelists, guys. So if you have a novel and you're a white male, now's your time. But point being, the least creative thing in the world is doing a takeoff of a fucking Shakespeare play. It's been done to death. It's been done a million times over. They've gender swapped it. They've race swapped it. They've made films about it. They've made plays about it. But yet that doesn't stop the left from making one more shitty play to take a shot at what? The patriarchy. Yes, the very same patriarchy that the woman who just shot up a school was so upset about. Well, this patriarchy is taking down Shakespeare because that guy, fuck Shakespeare, right? How dare he? Justice Ketanji Brown has especially cringeworthy lines where she comes in there and argues that Juliet should be given a chance to live and that Shakespeare should change his play because the female should not die just after having one boyfriend. That's patriarchy and it has to be changed. That's essentially it. I didn't realize how just short and annoyingly a dwarf she was until I saw this play. She's 4 feet tall. She looks like somebody that honestly, hard to describe her, but I mean, I don't know, an extra in the Lollipop Guild when it becomes diverse and they remake The Wizard of Oz. That's essentially what she is. And she's not a good actress, but yet you have this big announcement. Oh, we invited this first black Supreme Court justice to take part in this play. Oh my God. And wasn't the left going nuts? Don't they just love it? Wow, they couldn't jerk off hard enough. Who the fuck cares? I would argue, why do you want to see a Supreme Court justice in a play in the first place? Number two, you're also displacing an actor that could use that job. You know, acting, tough career, hard to find work. Let's put some asshole on stage instead. Now, granted, I think it's for, you know, a few night run. So they're not taking away a job away. They're probably, the person's probably just sitting in the wings. But again, you're still an actor. You're still pissed off that you're not on stage. For this fucking chud to roll out there and spit out these stupid, insultingly awful lines about the patriarchy and how Shakespeare was in need of changing his play. But the fact that they're showing the audience for this, and, you know, theater, they've always argued theater is something for the people, right? Even in the old Shakespearean round where Shakespeare's plays were performed, they had the seats for the rabble, the peanut gallery, right? And the peanut gallery was literally for the peasants to come in who would pay almost nothing and they would eat their peanuts and they'd throw peanuts at the stage when they were upset. But you did have the play as a thing that was available for all. Of course, Broadway is not the thing for all, nor is the left. The left is not a thing for all. They've abandoned the common person. They've abandoned the peanut gallery. They've abandoned the working class. Now the left, just as we see embodied in Ketanji Jackson Brown and academic universities that are completely worthless, teaching pointless ideologies and violent ideologies, we now know. Well, they've abandoned the class because now if you try to go to a Broadway play, good luck getting a ticket. Good luck not paying through the nose. And if you do pay through the nose and go and sit down, well, expect to be yelled at by the left for being too stupid to agree with them, for being so obtuse as not to say the trans people and the patriarchy and strong black women and, you know, you name it, you got it. Well, that's the way to go forward. Socialized healthcare. Fuck Broadway. Fuck Justice Ketanji Brown for doing this pathetic political stunt. I mean, I can't think of anything that is, as I mentioned very early in the show, more encapsulating for everything I hate about the left than this performance by a ultra woke Supreme Court justice in an ultra woke production, trying to erase one of the greatest writers in history and doing so in a manner that is so pathetically lazy, unfunny, and the writing in this was terrible too. You know, she goes something along the lines of her going, "Well, you know what? Why don't I just bring it up? I'll read some quotes verbatim here because I do have it from a excerpt that Matt Tiabi did in his mailer. Tiabi. Let's see here. Ketanji Jackson Brown goes Broadway. Let me open this up and then we'll give you guys a little taste because it is really funny. But it's just the fact that this play was award nominated, right? I mean, you take the basic concept here. Actually, you know what? I'm going to share the social media clip. Let's just watch it real quick here because it looks like it was just in social media, so it shouldn't be pulled down. Here we go. Let's just give it a go. And hopefully you can hear it okay, because I was having issues last night, but we'll see. Come on, play the clip. So awful. I guess they didn't show the line I really wanted to hear. Yeah, it's just the worst, the cringiest and the worst. The writing is sad and pathetic. And of course, they nominate this for an award because they always nominate this crap for awards. Here's the line that I wanted to share with you. And that is at the very end of this, right, they're trying to convince Shakespeare that Juliet should live. And this chick, Anne, now this is not Justice Ketanji Brown's character, says, well, the ending, shit. Why don't you change it? And the ensemble, oh, yeah. And Shakespeare says, what, you expect me to change my whole play? And then she lays down this zinger. Well, it depends, doesn't it, William? Are you a strong enough man to write a stronger woman? Because obviously, the character of Juliet has to be intrinsically weak, having killed herself because she was in love with a man. It can't be that Juliet's actually a strong character who's decided to take this into her own body, and that the strength of her character actually lies in her willing to make a sacrifice, not because of the patriarchy, not because her boyfriend happened to die, but because she was in love with somebody she was forbidden to be in love with, and she didn't want to live without them. Shouldn't that be something that should be celebrated by the left? Right? Shouldn't that be something that the left is all about? You know, for so long, black and white people were denied to date and marry, and now we can. Well, that's something notable. And in Shakespeare, these two families were supposed to be apart because there was hatred between them. And yet she was such a strong woman. She went beyond and past her family's hatred. They found a way, and when that love failed, she died. Should that be celebrated? I certainly think so. But no, these lazy leftist bullshit woke writers, they've got to tell you that the patriarchy is evil, that Juliet must live on, and that somehow William Shakespeare is to blame and should be erased. It's just pathetic. And Justice Ketanji Jackson Brown being in it is even more pathetic. Okay, moving on. A couple more things here, guys. There's a couple of Democrats trying to cancel the Electoral College. Now, this is in a proposal from, hold on, Senate Judiciary Chairman Dick Durbin and Brian Schatz out of Hawaii and Peter Welch out of Vermont. They are proposing this in the Senate after a proposal was put forth in the House. Now, I probably don't have to convince many of you that are watching this about why the Electoral College is important. But let me just say that the fact that Democrats constantly want to erase it tells you just how vitally important it is to actually safeguarding the future of the country, to voices and choice in America. Because obviously, if you saw what happened with California, Donald Trump was in a major lead to get the popular vote. And then, of course, through the slow counting of California, somehow manages to erase that deficit and now does not have a popular vote win. Kamala Harris has a popular vote win. Amazing how that happens. But even if there isn't chicanery going on there, the fact that you've got California, the largest state, and also, of course, let's not forget a sanctuary state. Let's not forget how many Democrats are in control of this. It is a perfectly blue state, and how many different immigration initiatives are being funded and paid for by our democratically run government right now, or our DNC run government right now. That there is not an intent to have an influx of people come into this country that are distinctly left-wing voters, naturalize or legalize those people and give them the right to vote, or let's say remove any barriers to them voting illegally, which of course we already know there are numerous instances of illegal voters, and of course removal of voter ID laws, etc. And then if you remove the Electoral College, well, now you've got a straight majority, and you can continue, once you have that majority, to buttress the majority with practices like I just talked about. The Electoral College stands as basically the last vestige of protection against that. And the fact that California, as populous as it is, as ideologically unified as it is in city centers, just like New York City and just like places like Philadelphia, even though Trump made inroads in a lot of those other cities, or I should say GOP and even libertarian, dare I say a thought. Well, you cannot have the rest of the country be run roughshod over because the coasts have a specific political bent. And the fact that they want to erase that shows you that, number one, they do not care about anybody else in the country. They don't care about anybody else outside of the cities of power that they have and the centers of power. And that the priorities are clearly different because you have, and I understand this, you have vastly different priorities coming from a city center. You have vastly different priorities and understanding of welfare spending, of minimum wage laws, of cost of living than you do in other environments. But these people do not give a shit about that. And the Electoral College, even if it is, you could argue maybe it's slightly flawed. Maybe you can reallocate it based upon more geographical sectors and breaking that up like places like Maine do. You've got one vote that goes to whatever the popular vote is and one vote that goes towards, your state electors. But to eliminate the college would usher in what is essentially just straight democratic tyranny, right? The tyranny of the majority. And what's so funny about this is that they didn't propose this until the California voting was completed, which was just a week ago. I mean, isn't that fascinating timing? That they wait for California's popular vote to catch up before proposing this? It certainly seems interesting to me. And what's funny to me as well is that places like France, which had to go through all sorts of gamesmanship of forcing candidates out of the race in order to steal a victory away from people like Marie Le Pen, you'd think the Democrats would look to that and say, maybe we shouldn't have a straight popular vote because if the winds do shift, then we do not have any protection. But again, they don't ever seem to do that. Now, granted, that goes for both political parties, for being perfectly honest, but the GOP has been the one to stand up against it, of course, because the GOP has benefited more from the Electoral College. But in the overall context of things, you would certainly hope that seeing all of Europe do a quick about face would scare the left into rethinking their priorities, rethinking the timing of pushing this forward, especially as Trump comes into office, and maybe take a little step back and really consider the powerful winds of change that are blowing not only in the president's office, but also with online media, with Elon Musk's influence, with the hopeful revamping of the United States government, which could quickly change people into the favor of libertarians or the GOP by making things more efficient, more prosperous for people, removal of taxes, removal of the Federal Reserve. I mean, these things are all universal goods that the left has fought to stop from being removed for decades and decades to keep the money trough flowing for those in power while disenfranchising people that are at the bottom. And I don't know, you take the Electoral College away, I think it's going to hurt you more than harm you. All right, last thing. So kind of getting my voice a little scratchy here. I pray I'm not getting sick. My one kid's home sick again, and I managed to fend it off. It's also very dry here. But Naughty Dog Studios, right? We talked about the patriarchy. We talked about trans. And we talked about the new view of the, well, actually not the new view, the old view of Hollywood over the past 15 years, which was that we have to push woke bullshit at all costs and literally at all costs. I mean, you're talking trillions of dollars thrown into the garbage. Most recent examples of that, of course, are the Snow White movie, which Rachel Zegler, which has been delayed, reshot, recut because people despise the woke actress and the woke plot of it. You have people, crashing and dying, pushing all sorts of woke nonsense within the Marvel universe. You have Disney crashing and burning because of releases like the Buzz Lightyear film, which they had shoehorned in a gay kiss. You have Disney Plus series like that piece of trash, what was it called? The Acolyte, where they're pushing lesbian space witches, which everybody just rolled their eyes and was like, get this fucking shit out of here. And even in the halls of entertainment companies now, you're having purges of woke writers and activist writers because they know they cannot lose any more money. There comes a point where you simply can't. This comes hand in hand with large companies being pressured into about facing by, I always forget his name, not Charlie Kirk. Maybe it's James Lindsay. I don't know. Somebody, I can't remember who the fuck is pushing this anti-DEI initiative out there right now. And I apologize for not being able to remember the guy's name. But forcing companies into making it about face, like Boeing, on the more idiotic ESG, DEI crap that is frankly making the products worse, driving customers away while bringing shareholders nothing. You're seeing this in the gaming industry as well. And I want to talk about this new Naughty Dog trailer that came out for Intergalactic, the Heretic Prophet. Now, Naughty Dog, I believe, is the one who made The Last of Us. They're a studio that had some renown. This latest game, they released a trailer with, of course, a bald, ugly female protagonist. If you're wondering if she's a surly girl boss, of course she's a surly girl boss, because that's all these people know how to make, other than putting, rampantly trans characters in. I think I did a show talking about Dragon Age, the Veilguard, which lost an unbelievable amount of money. Nobody's playing it. And that was a storied franchise. The game Concord that Sony rolled out lost $460 million, has been pulled. Doesn't exist anymore. Again, super woke, a cast of all ugly, ultra diverse chud characters that everyone hated. There's another game called Avowed that was all about, whatever pronouns that tanked. This newest game from Naughty Dog, maybe people will play it, but it certainly doesn't look like it. But it's the latest repudiation of this woke left ideology. And it's the only way that these people are going to learn. And as I mentioned, talking about the Electoral College, the entire cultural zeitgeist is shifting. And it's not shifting towards the left. It's shifting very quickly. I mean, more quickly than I could have ever thought. I thought that things might come back around 20 years. I'm seeing it in 2. Now, granted, this has been building. People's dissatisfaction. Am I saying that right? I think like I'm making up a word. Dissatisfaction. Jesus. Dissatisfaction. It's always a simple word. You can space out on the middle of a rant. The dissatisfaction with the left culture, which has been so dominant in every facet of life, from economics to entertainment to academia. I mean, you can't escape it. Into advertising, I mean, there's no way to escape this shit. People's dissatisfaction with that was growing so hard and so fast that it's now hit a boiling point where if a game comes out or a film comes out that even whiffs of woke bullshit, it just dies on the vine. I mean, you're talking multi-million dollars, years of effort, and it's dead on arrival. And that's what it has to be perfectly honest. Ubisoft, that's the one that made Dragon Age. They're being sold. It's a public company that is now being taken over by shareholders because it killed itself with DEI garbage. You're seeing people, like I said, Snow White be reshot. You're seeing game developers now, gaming companies, issue mandates like immediately across their entire gaming portfolio that says, if there's woke shit in this game, get it out. If there's anything that even remotely resembles it, get it out. The law has been established now. And you see this in this, Naughty Dog trailers that are coming out, getting ratioed 5-to-1, 10-to-1 of likes versus dislikes, dislikes versus likes. The dislikes are massively outweighing the likes. You're seeing it with film trailers. You're seeing it at the box office with box office results. Marvel, I mean, they just put out Kraven the Hunter, which Kraven the Hunter, I don't know why they'd even make that film. I didn't think Kraven the Hunter was a big character that people cared about. But nobody went and saw it. I think it made $11 million opening weekend. And that had a white guy in the lead. People just are over Marvel. They're over Disney. They want them to be punished. And that's just the way it has to go. It's the only way these people learn, because there has to be a point where no amount of investment from a BlackRock can save these companies if the will of the people is strong enough. All right, that's it. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you for watching. And let's see, hopefully my opinion on this doesn't get me completely canceled and erased from the face of the earth, because I still have to make money and take care of my children. All right, from me, Brian McWilliams from the Lions of Liberty, and from Mean Age Daydream, keep those electric eyes on me, babe. Keep that ray gun in my head. But also don't forget, you can support us on Patreon, on Locals. And if you get an annual subscription or upgrade your annual subscription, you can get a beautiful Lions of Liberty Merry Christmas mug. It's gorgeous. And our buddy over at the Weathered Soul podcast also made me this wonderful shitty libertarians mug, because as you know, I'm trying to create more shitty libertarians. So love that, guys. All right. That's it. Take her easy. We will talk to you next week for a pre-Christmas episode. Later.